You're listening to Journey for Truth with internationally known medium, Tai Yi practitioner, and radio host Tammy Urbanic.
Hello and welcome to Journey for Truth on iHeartRadio and YouTube. Thank you for joining me. I'm Tammy Urbanic. Journey for Truth Radio is always on demand and with many new episodes. On my website, you're going to see a treatment titled Healing the Bastard. This life energy flow treatment is for those who felt unloved, who felt unwanted as a child. It really doesn't matter if that person was clothed well, fed well, educated well, but if that person was truly unwanted for whatever reason, then Healing the Bastard can really assist in releasing the old and painful associations and emotions that come along with that. Healing the Bastard, again, on my website, empowermentthroughhealing.org. You can read more about the treatment. On JonahLifeInstitute.com, you can also sign up for their free newsletter. In the newsletter, you're going to read a lot of information on healing, different questions and answers that are presented, articles, just a great free newsletter where you can educate yourself on different ways to heal your past and to heal your current. My guest this week is Andi Katsina. Andi is the author of Phat Girl Synopsis. Andi is joining us today to discuss bullying and how we can prevent it and how we can also work on healing it if it's already occurred. Andi, welcome.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm pleased to be here with you.
Let's begin with your background. How did you become an orphan?
Well, my parents passed away.
Okay. So you had nowhere else to go? There was no other family, or?
No, I come from a very, very small family. I actually lived with my grandfather, but he was quite old at the time and he simply couldn't cope. So he used to put me in and out of the orphanage. And I had many other kind of foster brothers and sisters. So it worked out quite well.
Did that experience create certain perceptions as you look back now? Perceptions about life, about yourself?
Well, it made me feel very happy. It made me feel very grateful for everything I have. It made me totally appreciate life and people.
That's wonderful. You know, I hear so many times the opposite, where when a person becomes an orphan or a person is placed in foster care, it leads to a lot of false perceptions and unhealthy perceptions. So I'm really glad to hear that you had quite the opposite experience.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think that scenario is not just for people who found themselves orphaned. I think it's for an awful lot of people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it arises from a very introspective point of view, introspectively assessing yourself, your own surroundings, and people can really kind of let the thoughts run away with it and kind of get a little bit lost, shall we say.
Absolutely. I work with many people who are in that position, or they have been in that position where they feel very lost in their thoughts. They are a little lost in terms of which direction to take in their life, how to change certain false perceptions. How did you go about really directing yourself in such a healthy manner where you feel very good about your experiences?
Well, I guess from a very early age I was always very fortunate because I was kind of amazing at sports. And I think from the age of 7 I was a swimming champion, I was a running champion. I went on to win all kinds of championships at a later date. And I was also the captain of every team at school, every sports team. And I was also the captain of the school house and the head girl. So from a very early age I was always used to being responsible for others around me, and I guess really I used to think of their well-being just as well as my own, so wonderful. I guess I had responsibilities.
Yes, and being physically active can be very helpful too.
I believe so, yeah, it makes a heck of a difference.
Now, what inspired you to write about bullying?
Well, I've written over 20 books, and I kind of write for young people. I'm a fantasy writer. What happened, Tammy, is I'd had a motorcycle accident in Nepal, and I travelled to Thailand to recover, and I spent a lot of time just relaxing on the beaches, and I had time to listen to some of the radio shows. And I started started to hear stories about a lot of teen suicides, a rash of teen suicides in the States, in America. And it upset me so greatly. I mean, really kind of shook me. At the same time, a good friend of mine, his daughter had changed school, and I kind of really wasn't sure why that was, and I was quite afraid that it was because of bullying. So I prayed, like, how can I help? I was very determined to help, because I don't believe that any young person should lose their life, especially when it can be avoided. So I wanted to help, and being a writer, I thought, well, pick up your pen. And I was quite lucky in that the story came to me all at once. It kind of flowed through me. So I see the book, Phat Girl and the Sankara Parasite, I see it as a gift. And the good thing about it is that it really works. It really helps people who've been bullied.
How does it help them?
Well, in the book, the main character, she starts off being quite wretched. She's bullied relentlessly. And with it being a fantasy book, she kind of escapes to an alternate world, which is purely a reflection of her own world, but only the truth exists there. And she learns about bullies. She learns that bullies are not people to be feared. They're not great heroes. They're not necessarily big, decent people or kind of any kind of example to, lead other people. She learns that bullies are pretty much the same as anybody else. However, they have a low self-esteem issue. Sometimes they have impulse control issues, anger issues. And she learns that because of a parasite, hatred is propagated. She builds herself back up, and she goes on to work with the principal, work with other people to form an anti-school bullying society, an anti-bullying society, and lots of other positive, inspirational things. So it really follows a journey. It follows a journey from somebody on the edge of suicide to clawing back a good standard of living.
That's wonderful. So it teaches people who have been bullied that the bullies are people who also have their own difficulties, their own fears, their own insecurities, and many times that's the reason they lash out.
Yes, I think you probably know this just as well as I do, because you're from an educational background, and you've also been a teacher. So, yeah, there are a myriad of reasons why people bully, but it's not just the old adage, oh, well, they come from a deprived background or they've been abused themselves. There are two forms of bullies, but there are lots of different types of bullies. But fortunately, these days, we can kind of more or less identify all of these different types.
I have really noticed that people who choose to bully, typically they themselves have been bullied. They've been taught how to bully, and they many times do come from this place of fear or the need to control their environment or the need to control other people. And one of the reasons that we, meaning a nonprofit I work in as well, but that one of the reasons that we work with youth to help them overcome the injuries of having been bullied is to help prevent them from becoming a bully as well, which I think is really important.
Absolutely, because basically what you're doing is you're stopping the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You're stopping the cycle, nipping it in the bud. There are other types of bullies. I guess you could call it the mean girl syndrome, possibly coming from a privileged background. But again, it's about popularity and it's about control. Mm-hmm. And also low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, yes. Now, bullying, as you know, is truly an epidemic. In the United States anyway. I'm not sure about other countries, other cultures, but I'm sure it's very widespread. But in the United States, it is truly an epidemic. Suicides are increasing significantly, as you mentioned earlier. What are you hoping that your book will accomplish regarding this?
Thank you for asking this, Tammy. In the book, towards the end of the book, it explains the the young character, the young girl who's been relentlessly bullied, she writes a document and it's read out at school. It's almost like the basis of a protocol, an anti-bullying protocol. And it talks about who is a bully, who bullies, what you should do if you see bullying, and how to stop it. And basically what we need to do, this is what I would like to see, and I'm kind of contacting as many people as I can to get support for this. But I would like to see enforce an anti-bullying protocol in all schools. And you are quite right, it's not just the United States, it's global. But it is almost like a cancer. It's so insidious. The results of bullying could be, it goes as far as suicide, it goes as far as mass shootings in school, depression, eating disorders, trauma. There's so many different results. The young people end up being alcoholics, drug addicts. It's so harmful. But if we can all work together to put in place zero tolerance protocols, we need to teach the children from a very young age, and that's it. Bullying is wrong. We do not allow it.
Absolutely.
Because up to now, everything that's happened up to now, it's not working. It's It's still going on. As you said, it's very prevalent in the States. I come from England. It's very prevalent there because it's not working what we've been doing. We need to enforce protocols, no bullying. As a society, we can make this happen. We've made other things. We've made other great changes over the years. We can make this happen, but we have to agree on basic protocols and we have to enforce them. It's as simple as that. It's not a complicated thing to do.
Mm-hmm. I certainly agree with that. A workshop that I offer with another person's a bullying recovery project workshop. And one of the things that we really emphasize in that workshop is that while bullying is very widespread within schools, among peers, in youth groups, it's also widespread in families. Parents bullying their kids, teachers bullying their students, sometimes police officers bullying people. And it's all over the place. And I think it's because exactly what you were talking about, what we're doing isn't working. And people grow up to believe that it's okay to bully someone else, whether it's an adult bullying a child or an adult bullying another adult in the workplace.
Exactly. We have created a precedent where it's all right to bully because there is no repercussions. Somebody might get told off, somebody might get sent to the headmaster's office, but so what? Really, the harm that bullying does, it causes young people to kill themselves. Mm-hmm. This is worse than aggravated burglary. This is worse than a lot of felonies in your country. This is something that causes a young person to kill themselves. It's wrong in every aspect of bullying is wrong. But what happens is we, as a society, have become the silent condoners. We allow it. We silent bystanders. And we, not you, Tammy, because you and your organisation does phenomenal things to help this situation. But generally, as a society, we are silent bystanders. We allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm. I agree. We do, which is very unfortunate. And the consequences of leaving injuries unhealed within our kids is exactly what you were just describing. Anything from suicide to eating disorders to cutting to addiction, and then everything else in between, including becoming a bully. And I truly believe that if we could intervene more effectively within that cycle, we could create a much more peaceful environment, a much more peaceful world. And I think one of the problems comes from many adults are so caught up in their own survival. Work, make that next dollar, raise your kids, get to that next game. Everything is about survival to some degree, and there's not space left to have the compassion for those who carry many injuries.
I quite agree. Something that happened in my home country, I think it also happened in yours. It became politically incorrect to say certain terms. And it's really been great because over the span of 2 decades, we've stamped out certain prejudices, certain derogatory remarks. But we've kind of missed the point a little bit, well, a lot actually, because although like stamping out these phrases has been fantastic, it's had a very positive effect. What about bullying? I mean, these aren't just words that are being spoken and bandied about. You know, it's physical, it's emotional, it's mental. We forgot to kind of tag that onto the politically incorrect slate.
Right.
So it's really, we are time and time again in society, we are condoning it because nobody is well, as I say again, you and your people are doing wonderful efforts. And if there was more like you, then we'd be a lot further forward along this line. But basically, society, the politicians and everybody are basically just kind of shoving it to one side and saying, well, that really doesn't matter. It's just kids being kids.
Exactly.
And you know yourself, because you heal bully victims. It's not just kids being kids. It's one of the worst things that you can do. Because even young people who were bullied, my goodness, 60 years old and they're still talking about it. It affects them for life.
Absolutely. That is a phrase that I really don't like. Kids will be kids, or boys will be boys, or girls will be girls. I think that's a cop-out. I think it's a very passive statement so that it doesn't have to be dealt with. 2 kids beating each other up, whether it's emotional beating up, physical, cyberbullying, that's not kids being kids. That is a kid who grew up to be a bully or is growing up to be a bully and feels that they have a right to practice that on someone else. And that's not a kid being a kid. That is something different.
Yeah, it's out of control. It's reflecting behavior that has been passed on to them. It's reflecting behavior that is, as far as the child is concerned, because children learn from adults. So it really is our responsibility. And they are basically reflecting what they think is allowed in society, what they think is the norm, and what they think is acceptable.
Now, how do you encourage young people to overcome having been bullied?
In my book, Phat Girl and the Sankara Parasite, it is a journey, but during the journey, the main character, she learns through a series of lessons. She learns how to change her thought processes, because we all we should recognize, I know you do, Tammy, but we need to recognize that children, they're not necessarily fully formed. The processes are still very kind of fresh, they're new. They don't always have the logical processes to encompass the whole situation. What we need to teach them is how to step back and look at the bigger picture. Now, a child who is being bullied, a young teen who is being bullied, they become so isolated and so subjective that they can't really see that the person who's doing the bullying is not to be feared. They can't quite understand why it's happening to them. There's a lot of thought that they can't really bring into the situation, so they just become really put down and really kind of unable to find the way out of the situation. Through the book, it teaches the young people how to take a step back, how to not just look at themselves as a victim, but how to also see the bully as a victim, because the bully's propagating the hatred. I mean, bullies are bullies through weakness, mental weakness or emotional weakness, but bullies too are not powerful people, you know, and we need to teach the people, the victims, that where this is coming from, where the hatred is coming from, where the hurt is coming from. It's not, think about the Wizard of Oz, the big and powerful wizard. We need to pull back the curtain and you just see a little ditty guy, you know?
Right.
We need to teach them this, and my book does that. It through a fantasy tale, it shows them the power. It empowers them. It gives them the thoughts, the process, how to examine their own thoughts, and how to come out of it feeling empowered and strong.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to add, the fact is, the truth is that the book really is a tool, and it's becoming very successful because of this.
That is wonderful to hear, and I really like how you put in there teaching kids to change their perceptions, to begin questioning their thought processing, and to change their thought processing. One of the things that we add to that, including what you were stating, is changing, and you touched on this as well, but changing your thought process about yourself and looking at your false perceptions, your false beliefs. As you were also talking about earlier, a person who's been bullied has a tendency to have low self-esteem. And they see themselves as not good enough or needing approval, which then leads to drugs many times or other addictions or gang activity as well. So learning to change those perceptions and seeing them truly as incorrect and false so that the true perceptions can begin emerging.
Yes, this is what I'm hoping for. This is what I'm campaigning for. I think personally, just like me, Tammy, I think that you believe that this can be fixed. It's an oversight in society, but it is a most significant oversight because it has such repercussions. And the other thing that we've not really hit on is mass shootings. Mm-hmm. You know, it tends to happen more in your country than mine, but mass shootings for young teens, invariably now that there's studies like showing that there is a relationship between bullies. Now, not all bullies are obviously turn to that method. Most of them actually kill themselves, God bless them. But this is also one of the insidious consequences of bullying.
Yes, absolutely. That a person has been bullied to such a degree that they feel it's necessary to kill multiple people.
Yeah, it's we are failing our youth.
Mm-hmm.
We as a society are failing our youth. Tammy, what you are doing, what your organization is doing, is you're picking up the pieces and you're trying to build them back up.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need more of this. We need a lot more of this. And the only thing that I know to do to help the situation, because like I said, it was a few years ago now when it really hit me, and it hit me deeply that young people are killing themselves because of being bullied. I wrote my book, and now I'm campaigning as much as I can to get the word out. And for me, I'll campaign for a couple of years, and then we're going to take it to the government. But we're going to demand that protocols be put in place.
That's excellent. It is wonderful that people such as yourself are willing to take action, to question our current protocol, as you put it, to question how we're working with kids, and to really put it out there that we're failing our youth. And I completely agree. I see a lot of online comments where people will state that, our youth are just stupid, that they are just being buttheads, and whatever other label they put on there, that it's all the youth's fault. Well, the youth grow up through example. They learn through example, and that example, I feel, needs to be deeply questioned and then resolved, kid by kid, one at a time.
Yeah, and it's true, though. They are stupid, they're ignorant, they're foolish. And who teaches them to be that way? We do.
Mm-hmm.
So, because like you said, the children, they don't, even like teens, they don't make this up themselves. They learn it. The behavior is learned. And where do they learn it from? They learn it from us. So if our attitude is that they're stupid, they're ignorant, they're this and they're that, well, what does that say about us?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we must be twice that, you know. So really, we've got a lot of learning to do. And I think really we need to teach the children at the youngest age possible. We need to get it in the schools, zero tolerance for bullying. And we need to teach the adults. It will take many, many years, but we must begin this. We must.
Yes, absolutely. Now, where can people find your book and your information?
At the moment, my book is available on Amazon.com. My name is Andi Katsina, and the book is called Phat Girl and the Sankara Parasite. I guess if you do a Google search, I can be found quite easily on Google.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Andi, for being a guest on my show this week.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to get the word out. And I also appreciate all your efforts, Tammy, because you're doing great things.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you, listeners, for joining me here as well on Journey for Truth on iHeartRadio and YouTube. Until next time, have a fantastic week.